Hello, welcome back to another Manga Talks episode. For today, we're going through another set of assorted reads that I had recently. So just to show off, we have a Naono Yoshiko manga, which I'll go through first. Read another Sakabashira Imiri manga, finally. We've got one here called Used Book Beach by Onchi Midori. Tail of the Beast by Tsuge Tadao, love this one. And then we have another Hino Hideshi collection. So this is the Great Works collection. So I want to talk about this one first because this is quite an interesting one in my collection. So this is called Keito no Zubon, which is Woolen Pants by Naono Yoshiko. Previously, I did show this off in a haul when it came out because this is a reprint collection of their works. So the first time that I discovered them was actually through Garo. So they didn't primarily publish in Garo, but it was probably in like one of the late 60s or early 70s issues that I first read their stories from. But all the stories in this one are from assorted places that don't come from Garo. So if I go to the back here, so for example, there's a lot in Nakayoshi, there's a lot in Shoujo Friend. So some background to this, because I know in the video I showed this off, I did comment on the scan quality of this. The reason why the scan quality isn't that good for this reprint is because the actual manuscripts were destroyed. So the family home of Naono Yoshiko was actually destroyed in the Hanshin Awaji earthquake in 1995. So unfortunately, the manuscripts inside the home were lost. So they actually had to get these scans from the magazines themselves. So that's why you'll see there's like spots everywhere. It's not as clean. And so that makes a lot of sense because I was comparing it to like other scans from other books. But yeah, so this was a very interesting read. I was not expecting it to be as brutal as it was. Overall, I think there are a lot of okay stories, some standouts for me. I wouldn't say I'll like every story for this, but it had a very good start. So the first couple stories were quite strong. I'm not going to go through everything, but just to give a taste, the first story is called Who is Muddy? And the thing that really kind of shocked me was how, I guess, brutal the stories could be. Like, it kind of reminds me it reminds me of Umez and how he kind of doesn't really hold back when it comes to kids. And I guess it's kind of similar in this case. So this story, Who is Muddy? We have this child here called Muddy. She always asks her parents whether she's their kid because she's told she doesn't really look like them by like the neighbors. And the parents are kind of fed up with this. You know, they get asked all the time and they don't know why she's asking. So some time passes, just a couple things pass, and pretty much they go on a trip. And during that trip, am I on the right page? Yeah, during that trip, so she also has a brother, a newborn baby brother, and she gets jealous because, you know, she thinks that she's not their kid just because she doesn't look like them. And when they come back from the trip, they offer a present to her, and things are kind of fixed for that. But we find out that what had happened in the meantime was that she took her brother and she dumped him in the river. Yeah, she dumped him in the river, and she goes back out to try and check for where her brother Satoshi went, and he's just gone. So what a first chapter to open up this book with. That is an insane story. It's very brutal, and it continues because the next story is the titular one, Woolen Pants. And this one was actually inspired by Naono Yoshiko's own grandmother, who used to knit all the time and would like knit sweaters, all that type of thing. And she couldn't really say no to her. And we can see that in the story because Hiroshi is our main character here. He also has a grandma who knits a lot, and he hates it because he is forced to wear all these woolen sweaters and pants and everything like that. And pretty much we get a little bit about him, his thoughts on it, him going to school, and that's the grandmother over here. And some time passes when something very, I guess, ambiguous happens. I was a bit confused when I read this for the first time, but you see Hiroshi with this string here. When we flip to the next page, we just see a silent page of the string having some tension on it, him rolling around in the string, and what you can see here is that the string is attached to someone sleeping next to them, and it immediately cuts to the funeral of the grandma. So it turns out that the grandma was choked to death by this string here, and there isn't really much dialogue to really explain it on whether it was on purpose or not, or whether it was by accident. We don't know. I mean, looking from this, he was eyeing the string before, but if it was on purpose, that is an extremely messed up story. So yeah, this is what I mean by the start of this bunko being very strong and very hard-hitting in terms of the stories. Just the first two stories alone, you have a kid dying, you have a grandma dying, all because of these children who, you know, I guess act like children but in a very screwed up way. And so yeah, there are a lot of stories in this. I think I'll go through one more story because there's too much to go through all of them. But another one of my favorites from this, because I did like the first two stories for how brutal they were and how shocking. It gave me a lot of whiplash. There's another one called String, which I want to show off, which is another example of that kind of screwed up story. If I can find it. Hold on. Okay, managed to find it. Here it is, Himo, String. And this one is following these two girls here. One of them is named Aiko, who is the one with the black hair here, and then the blonde hair is Chieko. And so they're cousins, and Chieko is actually blind because when they were kids, Aiko had accidentally blinded her with a firework. So they're a bit older now. They're in like middle school, high school or something, but they take care of each other pretty much. They're always together. And so what we have is we just follow their relationship for a little bit, but what disturbs the story is when Ken, a love interest, enters the picture. So there's a guy here, and Aiko gets close to Ken, but Chieko, like she feels that Chieko kind of senses it and manipulates her-ish, because when after the accident, Aiko had promised Chieko that she would be her eyes. So I guess that her having a love interest would distract her from that, and I guess there's also like a sense of jealousy as well. So later on though, we do see a scene here of suddenly Chieko being dead after tripping down the stairs. So how did she die? Well, we get another reveal where Aiko was actually the one who set up a spring, or no, not a spring, a string trap to trip her. So just a string on the ground, on the stairs, and she is pretty much destroyed by the guild and says that she will never feel happiness again. Which honestly, I think is, yeah, you know what, that was pretty screwed up of you. You kind of deserve to not be happy. That is insane over a love interest as well. You know, I get the manipulating part from Chieko, but just straight up killing someone, you guys are high school kids. So yeah, another brutal story from this collection. But that was Woolen Pants by Naono Yoshiko. Really, I just had no expectations going into this because I only really knew one shot from them, and it wasn't anything too crazy either. So seeing those first couple of stories really was an interesting read. But overall, I think whether I recommend this book, yes, if you want some really brutal stories and stuff that was published in like Shoujo Friend and like Nakayoshi as well. So really interesting to see. Glad I had this. It did come a little beat up in the mail, but I don't mind too much because bunko books aren't really my thing, but this is the only format that they have published it in. So yeah, that was the first book, Woolen Pants by Naono Yoshiko. And oh, I should say as well, I think it did show, yeah, the stories in terms of when they were published, pretty much in the 70s. Yeah, pretty much all in the 70s. So there you go, for anyone interested or curious in the Woolen Pants story. So the next book that I want to go through, let's go through this one, Tale of the Beast. So Tale of the Beast, this is by Tsuge Tadao. It's been quite a while since I've read anything from Tadao, but this is the English release that was put out by, what's the name of? Black Hook Press. Okay. Black Hook Press was the one who released this. So originally published in Comic Baku from December 1987. So this one I picked up from, I think it was Gendai. And this is actually an unfinished story. So it's stopped when Comic Baku stopped. So unfortunately what we have here is not the finished story, but we still get actually the ending to the story. So there's like a written part at the end where it tells us what the story was planned to be. But I actually really like this one. It's quite a solid murder mystery or detective manga that was pretty refreshing. It's nothing too complicated. It's quite linear actually. And essentially we follow this guy who gets with a woman who, I'm not sure if, I forgot whether they owned or worked at a bar, but to kind of go into the gist of it, it all snowballs from there because the woman had been seeing the landlord of that bar, I think, and that person was keeping her, like giving her money and all that stuff, but now he kind of disappeared, and so she gets with our main character, and we have a side story of these detectives trying to, go around, solve murders, that type of thing. And I guess I will spoiler alert because I will say what triggers the story, or maybe should I don't know, but just I'll show you off the art. Great stuff. So it's got a blue ink, and this is Black Hawk Press. They did, I don't think they don't exist anymore. So Black Hawk did a couple other things like the Miyoko Asagaya feeling story. I believe that was put out a while ago too. But yeah, it's, in terms of the story, coming back to it, the spoilers, so you can skip ahead if you don't want to listen to this. But everything snowballs once the main character kills off that landlord. And that's where the detectives come in. That's where everything culminates into a sort of climax. And it kind of ends on a note where it does feel somewhat closed. I mean, it's still open, but you can kind of predict, even without knowing what the ending was, you can kind of predict what would happen anyways. So, but I really enjoyed it because it's quite straightforward. And some of Tsuge Tadao's other stories can be more complex, but gotta love some more Tsuge Tadao. I do plan to pick up Boat Life when the second and final volume releases. I don't even have volume 1, but still waiting on that to come through. But yeah, this is kind of a hard one to pick up, so happy I was able to get it from Sendai. It's been out of print for quite a while, so if you are looking out for it, good luck. I don't really know where else I'll be able to find it because I only see in Sendai and Japan Book Hunter have copies of this. Otherwise, I don't think there's really too much else. But yeah, I think one comment as well, which I'll say, which is kind of spoiler related too, was I was quite surprised with how quick the main event happened in the story. I mean, it is only 4 chapters anyway. It's not a very thick book to begin with, but still pretty quick. Yeah, actually really enjoyed this a lot. I do hope we get more Tadao stuff in the future, but we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so now we have 2 more books. I think I'll go through the Sakabashira one first. So yet another Sakabashira read. It's been quite a bit since I've read, oh sorry, no, I've got 3 books. Yeah, I forgot the Hino. I need to remember that. Okay, so I'll go through this one here. This is called The Throat Maze, or Nodo no迷路, and it's pretty much just Sakabashira's signature work. So just an insane journey through the wacky, the weird. And the premise of the story, or how it starts, is that this guy's friend, he develops a kind of colony on his throat. Like, he gets brought to a doctor, he opens up, and there's just like a colony of insects living there. So they try to eliminate it, but what happens later is that that guy becomes this masked looking dude. So he becomes like a monster of sorts, and they go on a journey to try and cure it. And it is an insanely wacky journey. I feel like I don't even need to explain what happens in this story, because you can just kind of see what's happening, and there's just a lot of random events that are tied together. Like, they go around, fight people, we meet weird characters. You have the usual bustling, oh no, not bustling, but cramped spaces that these events happen in. It's just all around crazy. I think out of everything I've read from Sakabashira, it's not my favorite. Like, I've read other stuff like Working Kappa, for example, and also The Boxman too. It's still a good story, but I think it didn't stick out to me as much as the other Sakabashira stories. So this was published by Seirin Kogeisha in 2016. So quite a while, but I love the cover. The cover looks great, and that's the monster looking dude here. And the story ends with them eventually turning back the guy into the human form, and they just need to take a bus back home. So yeah, another Sakabashira read I can tick off. I think that's all the Sakabashira books that I have. I don't have anything like the expensive ones like Mama Fufu. Oh no, I actually do have another one. It's the Keikya history one, the reprint, also done by Seirin Kogeisha, but that one is quite a large one. I haven't started that yet. But good to have another read under my belt for Sakabashira. Great stuff. Now we'll move on to this book here called Used Book Beach. This one's an interesting one. So I showed this off in a haul a couple months ago, or probably start of the year, fair I would say. So this is Used Book Beach by Onchi Midori, a collection of their one-shots. So what I explained beforehand in that video was that I found this because I was just looking at the stuff that Hokuto Shobo had been putting out. And this one is a recent book, put out in 2016 but reprinted in 2024 for its second reprint, and it's a collection of one-shots. But the mangaka themselves were quite influenced by Tsuge Yoshiharu, so a lot of these are quite dreamlike, as you can see straight away just from the art. So let me just bring up my notes for that. Okay, so each of these stories are actually quite short. So if I go back to the table of contents, you'll see that some of them are like 10 pages long. Not many of them actually go on for quite too long. Some of them even 1 page. So in terms of explaining the plot of some of these, they'll be very short. So for example, the first story that we have is called Couple's Basement. So a couple here, they notice their floor is housing like fish, and there's water underneath it. And so when they cut it open, they start fishing, getting food, and they walk out, and they realize that their entire house is just floating in the sea. So I love that, the texture of the water there. And pretty much what they do, they keep fishing. Once they have too much fish, they seal it back up. So it's stuff like this where mundane situations that are juxtaposed with the extraordinary, the insane. So what other stories can I explain? What's this here? Oh, this one's called Arranged Chairs, or Arranging Chairs. And it's just pretty much a girl, she finds chairs everywhere, and she lines them up. Goes into houses, gets more chairs. Here it is. She finds that house, goes in for a bit, meets these weird people, comes back out again and finds that the chairs have been rearranged by someone else. And that's it there. So I think overall, in terms of whether I enjoyed this read, I think I did enjoy it for how weird it was, and it's something that I didn't really read into too much. So again, a lot of these stories are very short too, under 10 pages. So for me, it was more just another good read of the weird stuff. And it's cool as well seeing the influence that older like Gekiga mangaka had. Also Miku pops up here randomly, which is very weird to see in like a book, especially one that is kind of associated in my mind with Gekiga and Tsuge Yoshiharu. I also find these figures here really cool. These ballerina figures. I don't even know what this story was about, but they look like ants to me, except instead of horizontal, they're vertical, but very creepy at some points too. But yeah, this was the used book beach tankobon. And oh yes, I forgot, they also have 4-panel works towards the back, quite a lot of them, and then and afterward as well. And yeah, because this was a 2024 reprinting, it wasn't very expensive either. It's quite a heavy book too, but 200 pages. Oh, and I don't remember if I showed it off, but that's the insides of it. Yeah, that's Onchi Midori. I don't know if I'll pick up another Onchi Midori book. They do have some other stuff, but we will see. And then the last book for today that we'll go through is a Hino book. So we have Hino Great Works, the second volume in the compilation series, the reprint series, and you really cannot go wrong with Hino. I feel like I've pretty much loved every story except one. I actually do want to talk about it a bit, but overall, like, it's so cool that they're reprinting all this. So getting all these books at a decent price is amazing, because finding the original, you can find them, but they're quite expensive. But so many of these stories were so good. It's just Hino is such a master at horror. So this, for example, is Red Flower Red Flower published in Com in 1972, and it's essentially about like a florist. Is that what they call it? Like he grows flowers in his garden, and he has a specific customer here who's like a flower arranger that she always buys from him, but he's pretty screwed up. So we discover that his secret for all the amazing flowers that he creates is that he just kills people and buries them, uses them as fertilizer or something, and they become these very beautiful looking flowers, and he just continues on his murdering spree. So that's the first story, but some other stories that we have. Oh, this one's quite interesting too. I want to talk about this. So it's the Mud Doll story, which I actually showed off from there was a Gara issue. I think it was Gara 1968 that it was from. And this is actually not that story. It's still Mud Doll, but it was a redrawing of it, because I was quite confused when I read this story, because I noticed that there were a lot of different changes to it. The art was different, some of the story was a little bit different as well, but essentially it stays the same, where you have a lot of these kids who have been impacted by pollution in their town, so they have all these deformities on them, and they create a mud doll to take out their anger on. But if you compare this to the original that was published in Gara in 1968, you can see all the differences. And so I will link that video. I'm pretty sure I showed it off in a video beforehand, but I'll try to find that. But yeah, you can, if you want, you can compare the differences. But it's pretty much the same story, but this was, redrawn. Because the original Gara was actually in a newcomer section that they usually do, and that's where Hino popped up. But yeah, that was very interesting. Even the ending scene, I believe, was quite different as well, from my memory. Yeah, that was a cool one. But so many good stories here, and the main story as well, because this one was good too. Illusory Island. It's about an island which is yeah, pretty much just like an illusion, I guess. The main story, where does it start? Red Snake? I think it starts here. Yeah, Red Snake. Oh, Red Snake is so good. We'll come back to the last story here, which this was the story that I think was weird because this one did not feel like, you know, at all. Like, at all. So this is a later work that actually came from 2000. And funnily enough, it's set in the year 2020, which is fitting because it's like a post-apocalyptic story where this old couple, they are living in this like flooded city and they try to fish and stuff, but you know, they're the only ones left. They can't really do anything else, and a mutated fish thing sort of comes out of the water and attacks them. And yeah, and that was the story. Very, very short one, also in green ink, which I find is interesting, but you don't like, I guess the only Hino part of this that you can tell right away is maybe from the snake creature here, but otherwise, even the character designs are quite different. Oh, maybe this panel is pretty Hino, but some of the others, which is fair, you know, 2000. It's quite a long time after the other releases here were put out too. But yeah, so that was the Hino Great Works collection, another 10 out of 10 collection. This was the old one, by the way, the very first one. This was Hino Best Works, put out by the same publisher. So they're going through a project of reprinting a lot of Hino's works. The third one will be coming out, I think it's actually released, but I don't think I'll pick it up straight away just because it's not too much on my priority list. It's a reprint anyway, so I don't think it will be too hard to find. So I'll pick it up whenever I see it, and you know, I've dedicated money to spending again. But yeah, so that was today's video. Couple of assorted reads over the past however long. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one. We'll be back with some more because I have been reading quite a lot. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm reading one by one through, I have like an order. So like I finished reading all the books on my desk. I'm moving on to a specific closet that I have. I'll finish that and I'll move on to another row in the shelf. So I'm doing it one by one to kind of get things going with my reading, and that has been very fun. But that means that I have a lot of material to just talk about in the future. So a bunch of really good reads. I think I don't know when I'll do a video on it, but Genesis by Sumeriko Hoshizono, look out for that. That will be a fun one, I think. Very unique story as well. Which, have I shown enough? If I have shown enough, it's probably 2 years ago. But that will be a fun one to talk about in the future. So yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.